In the autumn of 1918, deep within the blood-soaked mud of the Argonne Forest, nearly 200 American soldiers of the 77th Infantry Division lay trapped behind enemy lines, surrounded by hostile forces, cut off from communication, and suffocating under the devastating impact of friendly artillery fire that was meant to protect them. Their situation was an absolute death sentence. One by one, the soldiers dispatched their field messengers into the sky, only to see them instantly vaporized by a relentless curtain of German machine gun fire and shrapnel. They had only one asset left, a battered, soot-stained bird known simply as Cher Amy. As the bird was launched into the chaotic, smoke-choked sky, a burst of shrapnel tore through her breast, blinding her in one eye and leaving her leg hanging by a single tendon. Yet, driven by an unyielding, terrifying biological compulsion, this creature did not fall. She rode the shock waves of exploding shells, covered 25 miles in less than 25 minutes, and delivered the critical coordinate microcapsule to headquarters. When you look at a pigeon resting on a modern city ledge, you are not looking at a pest. You are looking at the genetic remnants of the ultimate tactical messenger of the ancient and modern worlds. This is a descendant of the rock dove Columba livia, a creature whose internal biological architecture contains a navigational array so advanced it rivals modern military satellite technology. For thousands of years, long before the invention of the microchip or the telegraph, the entire trajectory of human empires, intelligence networks, and military campaigns rested entirely on the wings of this single avian species. They are quantum navigators, capable of reading the magnetic lines of the Earth, mapping the auditory frequencies of the planet, and calculating coordinates across thousands of miles of completely unfamiliar terrain. This is a chronicle of the Skyline Sentinel, the ancient aerial asset that bridged the communication gaps of human civilization, defied the physics of flight, and saved thousands of human lives at the cost of its own. The relationship between humanity and the pigeon is the oldest avian alliance in recorded history, stretching back over 10,000 years to the fertile crescent of ancient Mesopotamia and the stone temples of early Egypt. Long before humans bred dogs for defense or horses for transport, they recognized a profound, inexplicable trait within the wild rock dove, an absolute, unbreakable tether to its home. No matter how far these birds were carried across the desert expanses, wrapped in darkness inside wicker baskets, the moment they were liberated, they would spiral upward into the sky, calculate their orientation within seconds, and fly a straight line back to their nesting site. This unique biological phenomenon, known as a homing instinct, was quickly weaponized by early civilizations to construct the world's first long-distance communication networks. The pharaohs of Egypt deployed pigeons to announce the arrival of trading fleets and the coronation of rulers, while the ancient Greeks used them to flash the names of victorious athletes from the Olympic Games to distant city-states across the Aegean Sea. This was not a system of training a bird to fly to a destination. Rather, it was a masterful exploitation of their domestic psychology. Humanity learned to maintain massive breeding lofts in major strategic hubs, manually transporting the birds outward to the frontiers of civilization so they could be released as organic, high-speed data packets whenever critical intelligence needed to bypass the slow, vulnerable routes of overland couriers. As human societies grew more complex, the reliance on these avian networks expanded exponentially. Julius Caesar used carrier pigeons extensively during his conquest of Gaul, sending rapid tactical updates back to Rome before land-based messengers could even cross the regional borders. In the East, the rulers of the Islamic Golden Age established the first highly organized state-run postal system utilizing pigeons, mapping out precise routes with relay stations across thousands of miles of desert. This infrastructure ensured that political updates, military troop movements, and emergency declarations could travel at unprecedented speeds across vast geographic barriers. The pigeon had effectively become the first wireless data network in human history, functioning as an indispensable pillar of early statecraft and imperial control. To understand how the pigeon executes these impossible feats of long-range traversal, one must dismantle the reductionist myth that they are simple animals and examine the hypercomplex, multilayered sensory matrix that guides their flight. A pigeon does not navigate by visual landmarks alone. They possess a redundant, overlapping system of environmental sensors that allows them to map the globe in real time. At the core of this system is profound biological relationship with the Earth's geomagnetic field. For decades, scientists debated how these birds perceive magnetism, until advanced neurobiology revealed the presence of microscopic, highly magnetic particles of iron oxide, known as magnetite, embedded within specialized structures inside the bird's upper beak and olfactory pathways, linked directly to the ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal nerve. This internal compass functions as a quantum sensor, allowing the pigeon to measure the inclination and intensity of the planetary magnetic field with surgical precision, creating a localized grid map within their brain. Furthermore, recent breakthroughs suggest that their vision contains specialized proteins called cryptochromes located within the retina. When struck by blue light, these proteins produce pairs of highly reactive radical electrons that are acutely sensitive to magnetic alignment, effectively allowing the pigeon to see the magnetic lines of the Earth superimposed over their visual field. They are literally flying through a visible grid of planetary energy, reading the unseen currents of the globe like an open ledger. This magnetic sense acts as a foundational baseline, a persistent global positioning system that operates perfectly even in total darkness or heavy fog. When a pigeon is released in an unfamiliar territory, its brain instantly analyzes a magnetic disparity between its current location and its home loft. This calculation happens almost instantaneously, triggering a directional correction that guides the bird's flight path. This sensory mechanism is so resilient that even when scientists have attached tiny magnets to the heads of homing pigeons to disrupt their magnetic perception, the birds have shifted seamlessly to alternative environmental cues, proving that their internal navigation array is engineered with layers of evolutionary redundancy designed to bypass external interference. If the magnetic compass provides a pigeon with its directional grid, it is their hyperacute auditory system that allows them to map the physical terrain over immense distances. Pigeons are capable of hearing infrasound, ultra-low-frequency acoustic waves that vibrate at frequencies below 0.1 Hz, far beyond the acoustic threshold of the human ear, which cannot perceive sounds below 20 Hz. These powerful, subterranean sound waves are generated by the deep mechanics of the planet. The crashing of ocean waves against distant continental shelves, the wind shearing over massive mountain ranges like the Alps or the Rockies, and the subtle seismic shifts of the Earth's crust. Because these low-frequency sound waves can travel thousands of kilometers through the atmosphere without dispersing, the pigeon's brain processes them to create an active, real-time acoustic map of the world. A pigeon released in the middle of a dense European forest can hear the distinct sonic signature of the Atlantic Ocean or the Mediterranean Sea, using these acoustic milestones to confirm their spatial orientation. This sonic layout is paired with an incredibly sophisticated olfactory navigation system. As a pigeon grows in its home loft, it memorizes the distinct chemical profiles carried on local winds, creating a regional smell map that tells them exactly which direction a wind current is blowing from based on the trace molecules it carries. This olfactory matrix allows the bird to recognize the unique chemical signature of its home atmosphere from hundreds of miles away. By combining the data from their infrasound radar and their smell map, pigeons build a deeply detailed, multisensory mental chart of the geographic landscape. If a sudden atmospheric disturbance or structural change blocks one sensory channel, the other channels instantly compensate. This multi-layered processing capability ensures that the pigeon rarely, if ever, loses its way, converting the chaotic, invisible currents of the atmosphere into a highly organized, navigable highway system that guides them safely back to their origin point. The physical body of the pigeon is an engineered marvel of high-velocity endurance and aerodynamic efficiency, designed to survive the gauntlet of predatory raptors and hostile environments. Unlike migratory birds that build their bodies for slow, steady energy conservation over seasonal journeys, the pigeon is built for explosive, sustained tactical speed. Their chest anatomy is dominated by massive pectoral muscles that comprise up to 30% of their total body weight, anchored to a deep, reinforced keel bone that act as a structural pivot for high-intensity flight. Their wings are highly adaptable afoils, featuring specialized primary feathers that can bend and adjust dynamically mid-flight to alter lift and drag within milliseconds. This allows the pigeon to achieve level flight speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour over 140 kilometers per hour, making them one of the fastest-moving targets in the sky. To fuel this metabolic engine, their respiratory system features a series of highly efficient air sacs that maintain a continuous unidirectional flow of oxygen through their lungs, ensuring that their flight muscles never face oxygen deprivation, even when flying continuously for 14 hours straight across burning deserts or freezing mountain passes. This physical endurance is supported by an optimized cardiovascular layout. A pigeon's heart can beat up to 600 times per minute during intense flight, pumping oxygenated blood rapidly through its highly vascularized muscular framework. Their bodies are built to absorb immense kinetic stress, allowing them to perform sharp, high-velocity evasive maneuvers when hunted by predatory birds like falcons. The combination of lightweight, hollow skeletal structures and dense muscle tissue creates a perfect power-to-weight ratio, transforming the pigeon into a tireless, high-performance aerial machine capable of outflying almost any environmental obstacle. But this primordial, mechanical mastery of the skies was only the prelude to the pigeon's definitive historical role. As the human race expanded out of the ancient world, entering eras of global colonization, massive industrialization, and total warfare, the necessity for absolute, UN-interceptable data transmission became the single most critical factor in the survival of nations. The humble rock dove, long viewed merely as a regional messenger, was about to be integrated into the darkest, most sophisticated espionage networks and military structures the world had ever seen. As empires clashed across oceans and continents, human armies faced an existential vulnerability. Telegraph lines could be cut, radio frequencies could be jammed, and human couriers could be captured. The global powers needed an asset that could move beneath the radar, cross active battlefields without triggering alarms, and deliver the keys to victory or defeat through a storm of lead and fire. To understand how this skyborne asset evolved into a foundational pillar of global espionage and military intelligence, we must examine the creation of the elite military pigeon services, the moment where the destiny of empires was tied to the wings of the Skyline Sentinel. The evolution of human financial and geopolitical systems owes an uncredited debt to the deployment of the carrier pigeon, which functioned as the world's first high-frequency trading network long before the advent of digital cables. In the early 19th century, as Europe was continuously reshaped by the Napoleonic Wars, the speed of information was the ultimate currency, capable of crashing markets or creating overnight dynasties. It was during this volatile era that the legendary banking house of Rothschild established a private, highly secretive network of pigeon lofts stretching across the English Channel and continental Europe. While mainstream news couriers crawled across broken roads and relied on wind-dependent ships, the Rothschild pigeons bypassed the physical infrastructure of the state entirely, flying critical news of military outcomes, most notably the British victory at the Battle of Waterloo, directly to London within hours, allowing the banking empire to manipulate the stock market and secure absolute financial dominance over Europe before the British government even knew the battle was won. As the world plunged into the total mobilization of the First World War, the strategic utility of the pigeon shifted from financial espionage to the brutal reality of frontline survival. Despite the introduction of field telephones and early radio technology, the sheer destructive force of industrial artillery constantly severed wire communications, while atmospheric interference and primitive encryption left radio transmissions highly vulnerable to enemy interception. In this chaotic, mud-soaked hellscape, both the Allied and Central Powers established massive, highly disciplined carrier pigeon corps, deploying over 500,000 birds to the front lines. These birds were kept in mobile lofts disguised as horse-drawn carriages or hidden trenches, carried directly into the heat of combat by infantrymen who strapped them to their chests in specialized wicker baskets or threw them over their shoulders in canvas bags as they went over the top into no man's land. The physical tactical deployment of these birds under active fire required an unprecedented level of resilience from both the animals and their human handlers. When a frontline unit was pinned down, blinded by poison gas, and cut off by an artillery barrage, the commander would write a precise tactical update on micropaper, roll it into a lightweight aluminum capsule, and secure it to the bird's leg. Upon release, the pigeon faced a terrifying gauntlet. German forces recognized the critical nature of these avian messengers and deployed specialized units of marksmen armed with shotguns specifically tasked with clearing the sky of any flying silhouettes. To counter this, the bird developed a tactical launch behavior, spiraling tightly within the smoke screen of the trenches to gain altitude before executing a sudden, high-velocity dash toward the rear lines, flying so low to the deck that they used the natural contours of the shell craters to shield themselves from incoming fire. Beneath the feathers of these wartime messengers was a psychology that had been intensely conditioned to view the mobile loft as their absolute anchor of survival. Human handlers, known as pigeonniers, developed highly precise training regimens that manipulated the bird's social dynamics, utilizing starvation, mating separation, and territory deprivation to maximize their return speed. A male pigeon separated from its mate and territory would fly with a ferocious, desperate urgency, pushing its cardiovascular system to its absolute biological limit to return to its nest. This psychological manipulation turned the pigeon into the most reliable communication system of the Great War, maintaining a staggering 95% success rate in message delivery across the Western Front, outperforming every single piece of human electronic technology available at the time. The interwar period and the subsequent outbreak of World War II witnessed the transformation of the pigeon from a standard battlefield messenger into a highly sophisticated asset of clandestine espionage and aerial reconnaissance. The precursor to modern drone surveillance did not utilize microchips or rotors. It was invented in the early 20th century by a German apothecary named Julius Neubronner, who engineered an ultra-lightweight, miniature camera equipped with mechanical pneumatic timer that could be strapped directly to the breast of pigeon. When released, the bird would fly a predetermined path over enemy fortifications, and the timer would automatically actuate the shutter at precise intervals, capturing high-resolution, low-altitude panoramic aerial photographs that revealed troop movements, artillery emplacements, and hidden bunkers that were completely invisible to high-altitude human reconnaissance aircraft. When the shadow of the Third Reich blanketed Europe, the British Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, launched Operation Columba, a brilliant, highly dangerous psychological warfare and espionage campaign that weaponized the domestic nature of the pigeon against the occupying Nazi forces. Specialized Royal Air Force bombers equipped with thousands of small, perforated cardboard containers dropped over 16,000 carrier pigeons attached to miniature parachutes over the occupied territories of France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Each container contained a pencil, a sheet of ultra-thin rice paper, and a detailed questionnaire asking the local resistance fighters to document the locations of German radar stations, troop concentrations, and V-1 rocket launch sites. Local citizens would find these birds tangled in orchards or fields, risk their lives by filling out the intelligence sheets, insert them into the lead capsules, and release the birds into the night sky to fly back across the heavily patrolled English Channel. This clandestine aerial highway triggered a violent, high-stakes counterintelligence war in the skies, as the German High Command realized that their most sensitive military secrets were leaking through a network of birds. In response, the German army established the Abwehr Pigeon Department, enacting strict decrees that made the possession of a live pigeon by a civilian in occupied territories an offense punishable by immediate execution. Furthermore, the German military deployed the ultimate biological countermeasure, specialized units of trained peregrine falcons stationed along the coastlines of France and Belgium. These predatory raptors were trained to patrol the airspace at immense altitudes, using their hyper-developed vision to intercept and neutralize the incoming British pigeons in mid-air, striking them at diving speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour in a brutal exhibition of state-sanctioned biological warfare. To counter the devastating losses inflicted by the German falcon patrols, British pigeoneers began selectively breeding and training their birds in nighttime operations, rewriting the natural diurnal biology of the pigeon. Pigeons are naturally blind in low-light environments and possess an instinctual terror of flying after dusk due to nocturnal predators like owls. However, through rigorous darkroom conditioning and progressive twilight releases, handlers successfully created a caste of night-flying pigeons. These silent, nocturnal phantoms flew under the cover of total darkness, completely invisible to both the German falcon patrols and anti-aircraft spotters, delivering critical intelligence that directly shaped the planning of the D-Day landings at Normandy and proved that the genetic code of this species could be adapted to bypass any human or natural defense system. The dawn of the Cold War and the arms race of the mid-20th century pushed the integration of avian biology into the realm of experimental military engineering, leading to one of the most bizarre yet terrifyingly functional weapons programs in American history, Project Pigeon. Conceived by the legendary behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, the project sought to solve a critical limitation in early missile technology, the complete lack of a reliable, un-jammable guidance system for guided bombs. Before the invention of microprocessors, infrared sensors, or digital radar, Skinner realized that the rapid visual processing speed and high cognitive focus of the pigeon could be utilized as an organic, living computer to steer munitions directly onto enemy targets. The architecture of this biological guidance system was a masterpiece of behavioral conditioning and mechanical integration, embedding 3 trained pigeons inside a specialized nose cone of a Pelican-guided missile. Each bird was secured within a tiny cockpit facing a translucent projection screen that displayed a real-time visual feed of the terrain ahead, transmitted through a lens array at the front of the missile. The birds were intensely trained using operant conditioning to recognize the visual silhouettes of enemy battleships, troop transports, or bridges, When a target appeared on the screen, the pigeons would peck furiously at the image with their beaks. Their pecks were detected by conductive gold leaf sensors on the screen, which translated the physical location of the pecks into electronic signals that adjusted the missile control surfaces, continuously correcting its flight path until the point of impact. Despite the absolute skepticism of the military establishment, the pigeon-guided missiles performed with flawless accuracy during controlled testing, demonstrating an unparalleled resistance to electronic countermeasures because a living, breathing biological brain cannot be jammed by radio frequencies or radar chaff. The project was ultimately shelved only due to the rapid acceleration of electronic computing, yet the research proved that the pigeon possessed a visual processing rate that operated at an astonishing 150 frames per second, nearly 6 times faster than the human eye. This allowed them to detect minute, high-speed shifts in their visual field and make split-second tactical corrections that outpaced the mechanical relay systems of the era, elevating their status from simple messengers to organic components of high-precision military weaponry. As global conflict transitioned into the modern era of asymmetric warfare and electronic blackouts, the ancient utility of the pigeon experienced a silent, highly classified resurgence within the world's most elite intelligence agencies. In the rugged, deeply isolated mountain ranges of Tora Bora and the fractured urban landscapes of the Middle East, modern electronic surveillance infrastructure, including satellite tracking, drone imagery, and cellular interception, is rendered largely ineffective when targets communicate via completely off-grid methods. Western intelligence operators discovered that insurgent networks had revived the ancient art of the carrier pigeon, using them to transmit highly sensitive operational orders, logistical data, and encrypted codebooks across borders without creating a single byte of digital footprint. This proved that no matter how advanced human technology becomes, the biological silent network of the pigeon remains the ultimate un-hackable, untraceable communication asset on the face of the earth. The final chapter of this epic historical and biological odyssey brings us out of the smoke of the battlefield and the secrecy of espionage labs back into the teeming concrete canyons of our modern megacities, revealing the ultimate survival triumph of the pigeon. Having served as the ancient postal network of empires, the clandestine eyes of wartime intelligence, and the organic guidance systems of experimental weaponry, the pigeon executed a flawless transition from military asset to urban conqueror. The very features that make modern humans view them as a city nuisance, their massive populations, their resilience to pollution, and their ability to nest on high-rise windowsills, are the direct evolutionary results of their hardwired survival mechanics. The modern city is not an alien environment to the pigeon. It is a structural replica of their ancestral home, the sheer vertical limestone cliffs of the Mediterranean, with our concrete skyscrapers functioning as perfect artificial canyons and our waves providing an endless supply of high-calorie sustenance. This absolute adaptability is driven by a unique reproductive and anatomical blueprint that allows them to outbreed and outsurvive almost every other avian species on the planet. Pigeons are among the very few birds that produce crop milk, a highly nutritious, protein-fat-rich secretion produced in the lining of their digestive tracts that both mothers and fathers regurgitate to feed their young. This biological innovation means that, unlike other birds that are strictly dependent on seasonal insect hatches or fruit availability to raise their chicks, pigeons can breed continuously throughout the entire year, even in the dead of freezing urban winters, shielding their young from environmental scarcity. Their social structure is built upon an absolute monogamous bond. Once 2 pigeons mate, they form a permanent tactical partnership that lasts their entire lives, working in absolute synchronization to defend their nesting site, forage for resources, and pass down their highly refined migratory and survival data to successive generations. As we look toward a future increasingly defined by climate volatility, digital vulnerability, and the constant threat of global cyber warfare, the legacy of the Skyline Sentinel stands as an irreplaceable biological safeguard for human civilization. In an era where a single high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, EMP, or a coordinated cyber attack could instantly blind our global satellite networks, sever our fiber optic cables, and plunge modern communication back into the dark ages, the ancient pigeon lofts maintained by military entities across the globe are no longer viewed as historical relics, but as critical redundant assets. Nations like China and Switzerland have historically maintained or re-examined specialized avian communication units within their military structures, recognizing that when the screens go dark and the digital grid collapses, the quantum navigation engine of the pigeon will still be completely functional, reading the magnetic lines of the Earth to deliver the message of human survival through the ashes of technology. The pigeon did not just inhabit our cities. They accompanied us on every step of our ascent from primitive agricultural tribes to global spacefaring empires, sacrificing their lives in the thousands to bridge the communication gaps that built the modern world. They are the silent witnesses to our history, a living connection to the day humanity first looked up into the clouds and realized that the sky could be managed, harnessed, and navigated by a loyal aerial partner. From the desert temples of ancient Egypt and the blood-soaked trenches of Verdun to the stone ledges of your local street corner, the rock dove remains an immortal monument to resilience, a brilliant quantum navigator that conquered the wilderness, mastered our battlefields, and rewrote the rules of survival to ensure that the skyline will always belong to the sentinel.